Express Nation, how are y'all doing on a wonderful championship weekend? We had 4 games played last night, with Boise State beating UNLV, Tulane getting the win over North Texas, Kennesaw State with a close one over Jacksonville State, and JMU handling business against Troy. I went 2-2 with my predictions last night. I had North Texas winning, and I had UNLV winning. Both teams ended up losing. I will say about that North Texas Tulane game, it was one of the worst officiated games I've seen this year. I mean, there's been a handful of games that have been poorly officiated, but that North Texas Tulane American Conference Championship game was definitely one of those I would add to that group. Now, 14 points for for Tulane was added to the board by missed calls and poor calls on the field. And I think officiating as a whole needs to be looked at going into the offseason, which we'll make a whole nother podcast talking about that. Just some quick news roundup. We have Matt Campbell, Iowa State's head coach, going to Penn State. We have Baker, LSU's current defensive coordinator, going to stay under Lane Kiffin's regime. We also have Washington State's head coach, Jimmy Rogers leaving Washington State to go to Iowa State. It was literally as soon as Matt Campbell was announced that he is signing with Penn State to become their next head coach, Jimmy Rogers was right on the next one. Iowa State already had their replacement. So Eric Morris, Oklahoma State, you got John Summerall. He's going to Florida. And I stated last night when it came to those two coaches that the American Conference Championship game was kind of a who was the best hire type game. Whoever won that game, whoever made the best decisions going into their new program will be looked at as a great hire, or at least give them a better edge. And their fan base is looking on how good of a hire that actually was. With that, there's a lot more coaching changes that have came around next weekend. I will talk a little bit more about the coaching changes and other news, full impacts that has happened in college football. But right now, we're just going to discuss conference championship games. There's about 5 games. There are 5 games on the slate for this week, or for today, not this week. This weekend is here, and the games that obviously that no one's really going to watch is Western Michigan versus Miami of Ohio at 12 o'clock because it's playing at the same time. BYU versus Texas Tech is playing at 12. So obviously the Big 12 championship game is going to get highlighted over the MAC, which don't sleep on Western Michigan. Western Michigan has a defensive end who I believe is like one of the best defensive ends in college football right now. He's a top 5 end without a doubt. He's top 3 in sacks on the season so far. He's an absolute terror to any offensive line that he's facing. And this is the second matchup between Miami of Ohio and Western Michigan. And normally, in the second time around, if you lost, you normally win. Or if you win, you normally lost, however you want to look at it. Because Kennesaw State versus Jacksonville State, they played for the second time. Kennesaw State got the win. Boise State, UNLV. Granted, Boise State does have like a 5-game win streak over UNLV right now. So there are going to be some anomalies to what I said. Granted, UNLV, Boise State. So this is the second time for Western Michigan against Miami of Ohio. I'm staying with the status quo of you can't beat a team twice in the same season. So give me Western Michigan and that defensive line over Miami of Ohio. And then BYU versus Texas Tech. I think this is going right back to the status quo that I stated. Can't beat a team twice in the same season. BYU, Texas Tech. This is a second-time matchup. This is no longer home field advantage for Texas Tech, but their fans will travel. I believe with the way BYU got beat in the first time, they're going to look at that and they're going to come prepared for a much better Texas Tech team because their quarterback's not as hurt as they were when Texas Tech played BYU the first time. Morton is now fully recovered. Even when he was hurt, he threw 7 touchdowns to 1 interception. He missed those 2 games with his injury. Now he's back. He's had some games in. He's back healthy. He hasn't practiced with the boot this week. So BYU's getting a more healthy, more fresh Texas Tech team. So this could turn into more of a slaughter fest than what it was the first time around because he wasn't as mobile. He wasn't able to get away from pressure when he slammed it in the pocket. Now he'll be able to actually escape somewhat of the pressure. But I think BYU is going to become prepared for what Texas Tech brings. Jacob Rodriguez, you're not going to really diminish his shine. He's going to shine in this game. It's kind of hard to shut out a Heisman level player like Jacob Rodriguez But for me personally, I think BYU is going to get this win, giving them the nod in the CFP rankings. And you're going to have two Big 12 teams make it because at 4 o'clock, you have Alabama versus Georgia. As a Georgia fan, I truly think we're going to lose this game. I don't think we have an actual shot at winning this game. But as a football fan, I think Georgia has it. I think second time around, Georgia can get it done. Like I said, it's really hard to beat a team twice. Bama, I know they can definitely do it. They're one of those teams I know they can definitely beat a team twice in the same season. And I think they've already done it to Georgia before. But I'm going to ride with Georgia. They're coming in hotter. They're coming in fresh. Yes, both teams had a close game to end the season. But for Georgia, it was just more of their offense just really needed to find their key. And to me, watching that offense, there wasn't too much of an open book. It was like a very closed book with a lot of runs. If they could throw one over the top, they would try to test over the top. But it was mainly run, run, run. If we had to pick up a first down on a pass, we called it a guaranteed first down play, and then run, run, run. For Alabama, it looked like their playbook was a little bit more open. It looked like they tried to utilize their specialties in their offense to attack Auburn, but it just wasn't working. So I think Georgia is a little bit more confident. I think Georgia has been a little bit more consistent to end the season than Alabama. Granted, you can't sleep on Alabama. I mean, they're a team that they're going to figure it out. They're the kryptonite of the Bulldogs. You know, elephants versus dogs don't really work out, especially in size difference. But I think Georgia's going to be able to get it done. I want to believe as a Georgia fan that they can actually win this game. And if Georgia does win, then they will get in. Alabama will get knocked out. They're not going to get punished for making it. They're just going to get knocked out because BYU and Texas Tech are both going to make it with a BYU win. That's how I think that's going to play out. Then over at 8 o'clock, you have two games, one on Fox, one on ABC. You got Duke versus UVA at 8 o'clock. And this is going to be a thriller of a game. This is another second-time matchup. Out of all the games that I've played this championship weekend, you've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of the 9 matchups be second-time matchups in the season already. Boise State, UNLV, Kennesaw State, Jacksonville State, Duke, UVA, Miami of Ohio, Western Michigan, BYU, Texas Tech, Georgia, Alabama. You've had so many teams make it to the conference championship game, and they've already played the team that they're playing in the conference championship game. I think that is a crazy thing to look at championship weekend. But back to the Duke UVA game. UVA handled Duke in their first meeting. Darren Mansar did not look like the quarterback that I thought, I've praised him to be all season. I mean, Duke as a whole looked very flushed. That was the best defense I've seen UVA, actually, like most complete game I've seen UVA play all season was the first time around against Duke. If UVA can repeat performance, then Duke doesn't have a shot. But I think Duke's going to learn from its first time and perform better in the second time. And another reason why I'm not going against the status quo, it can't beat a team twice, is because I would love the chaos that Duke will create with Tulane winning and JMU now winning. If Duke loses, ACC very well might not get a playoff bid, especially if BYU wins. You get a BYU win tonight to go along with a JMU win and a Tulane win last night and a Duke win tonight. Yeah, no, ACC's not getting them. And that would throw an absolute wrench into the playoff system that CFP has made because everyone's going to hate a G5 team making the playoffs over a Power 4 team. I think there's going to be more folks harping that a bad ACC team should make it in over any good Group of 5 team. And I don't think that should even be an argument. I really don't. I think those two G5 teams should make it in based off of what they've done in winning their conference championship, being the 1 and 2 loss teams that they are over a 5-loss Duke team if they win it. Now, this is most definitely the game of the day. Indiana versus Ohio State, the 8 o'clock game. I think this is the game everyone's going to be watching at 8 o'clock. To me, Ohio State is probably the most complete team. To me, Ohio State reminds me a lot of Alabama. The only difference is Ohio State actually figured out how to run the ball towards the end of the season, which they was able to do against Ohio State. Yeah, Michigan. And for me, Indiana is probably the most complete team in college football. They have the offense. They have the defense. I think this year is a little bit better than last year's Indiana squad defensively, or a lot better defensively. I don't think Ohio State really changed too much from last year's team. except their run game isn't as good as it used to be. So you have two teams. I think one has progressed heavily, while the other one has made some slight declines. But at the end of the day, Ohio State's still a good football team. Ohio State, no matter if you didn't want them 1, if you wanted them 5, whatever you wanted them in the top 5, Ohio State's a top 5 team. However you look at Indiana, they're a top 5 team. You're going to have a top 5 versus top 5. And to me, I think Indiana actually has a shot of getting it done this week. This is probably going to be their best shot. If Indiana loses, I think you're going to get the same Indiana production in the playoffs that you got last year. A team that just wasn't really in it. They win this game, I think Indiana really, really makes a run in the playoffs. But it all depends on this game. We're going to run through the little predictions I got. We got UGA over Bama, BYU over Tech, Western Michigan over Miami of Ohio, Indiana over Ohio State, and Duke over UVA. Granted, Duke's just for the plot, but those are the 5 matchups of the day. Those are my 5 picks. Like always, let's enjoy some college football, let's watch some chaos, and I'll catch y'all in the next episode.